For most of the 20th century, China was not considered a leader in armored warfare. In the shadow of Soviet industrial power and Western tank doctrine, Chinese engineers began their journey decades behind, armed with little more than copied blueprints and foreign hand-me-downs. But what happened over the next 70 years became one of the fastest armored evolutions in military history. First they observed, then they imitated, then they adapted, and now they innovate. This is the complete transformation of China's tanks, from crude Soviet clones to some of the most advanced digital predators on Earth. The story begins in the tense aftermath of China's Civil War, when the newly formed People's Republic entered the early Cold War with almost no domestic armored industry. China needed tanks quickly, and the Soviet Union provided the answer. The result was the Type 58, China's first major armored vehicle of the modern era. Based heavily on the Soviet T-34-85, the Type 58 was rugged, simple, and built for mass production. It became China's first true armored symbol, proving that solid Soviet-era designs could survive even the toughest parades, harsh terrain, and battlefield conditions. Soon after came the tank that would dominate China's armored forces for decades, the legendary Type 59. Derived from the Soviet T-54, this machine became the backbone of Chinese armored warfare through the 1950s and beyond. It was not flashy, it was not futuristic, but it was reliable, rugged, and produced in enormous numbers. For much of Asia, the Type 59 represented China's arrival as a regional military power. It was the armored workhorse that carried China through the early years of modernization. But China's geography demanded more than just heavy main battle tanks. Much of the country was mountainous, rugged, and filled with narrow roads where larger vehicles struggled. This need produced the compact Type 62, a lightweight tank designed specifically for southern China, smaller, faster, and easier to deploy. The Type 62 sacrificed armor for mobility, allowing it to squeeze through terrain where heavier tanks feared to go. It became a specialist tool for difficult environments, proving that speed and adaptability could sometimes matter more than brute protection. China also recognized the importance of amphibious warfare, especially with river crossings and coastal operations always in strategic focus. That led to the development of the Type 63, an amphibious tank built for water mobility as much as firepower. This vehicle was designed to support infantry landings, combining enough punch to fight on shore with the ability to swim across rivers and coastal zones. In a region where waterways could define battle lines, the Type 63 offered China a unique armored advantage. By the late 1960s, China began refining its aging tank fleet with domestic improvements. The result was the Type 69, a more advanced evolution of earlier designs. While still rooted in Soviet foundations, the Type 69 introduced upgraded fire control systems, new components, and improved battlefield technology. It proved an important lesson. It was not only the outside shape of a tank that mattered, but what was inside. The electronics, the optics, the systems that turned steel into a predator. Then came the 1970s, and with it, the Sino-Soviet split. China could no longer rely on Soviet support. This forced Chinese engineers into a new era of experimentation, where the country began to push beyond cloning and into true domestic innovation. One of the strangest products of this era was the experimental WZ-122, a prototype that tested new suspension systems and more powerful smoothbore guns. It never became a mass-produced tank, but it marked a crucial turning point. China was now willing to explore bold new directions. China continued improving the Type 69 lineage, producing the Type 69I, which focused heavily on night fighting capability. Infrared searchlights and improved crew optics reflected an emerging understanding that modern warfare did not stop when the sun went down. The battlefield was becoming a 24-hour environment, and Chinese armor needed to see, hunt, and survive in darkness. Light tank development also continued with projects like the WZ-132, intended to create a highly mobile platform with modern electronics. Though it remained in testing for years, it demonstrated China's determination to modernize even its lighter armored vehicles. Meanwhile, China returned to its most famous workhorse, upgrading it again with the improved Type 59I, which introduced better fire control and key quality of life changes for the crew. It showed that China was not abandoning old designs, but evolving them to remain relevant in rapidly changing combat conditions. Similar upgrades appeared in light tank variants like the improved Type 62I, which added better sensors and survivability improvements, ensuring older platforms could still play meaningful roles. Amphibious designs were also refined, with updates like the Type 63I, focusing on improved reliability and endurance. China understood that naval landings and river operations would remain essential missions, especially in the context of Taiwan and coastal strategy. By the 1980s, China entered its reform era, opening gradually to Western influence and technology. This period saw the emergence of new prototypes that looked far more modern than anything China had previously fielded. One such design was the WZ-1224, a prototype that tested powerful engines and new gun concepts inspired by Western tank development. It represented a major shift. China was beginning to move away from rounded Soviet-style turrets and toward angular, modern main battle tank philosophy. Another experimental step was the WZ-1226, which explored different hull shapes and stronger power plants in search of the perfect balance between speed and protection. China was now playing catch-up at astonishing speed, absorbing lessons from both East and West. Export success also arrived with vehicles like the Type 69-2, an improved model that became popular worldwide. Reliable Chinese firepower was now spreading beyond Asia, proving that China could compete in the global arms market. A major leap forward came with the Type 79, which blended Eastern foundations with Western technology like laser rangefinders and improved engines. This was not merely an upgrade, it was China stepping into a new generation of armored warfare. Refinement continued with the Type 79-2, adding better sights and protection against modern anti-tank threats. Transitional designs like the Type 85I tested new turret concepts, acting as a bridge between older models and the future machines soon to arrive. China's ambitions became clear with the Type 88, a tank that served as a mainstay of armored divisions for years. It balanced cost and performance perfectly, offering modernized capabilities without the expense of cutting-edge Western designs. Further upgrades, like the Type 88A, introduced longer guns for improved penetration, while the Type 88B improved crew layout and loading efficiency. Export-focused models like the Type 85II showcased welded turrets and improved armor packages, demonstrating China's growing mastery of modern tank construction techniques. By the 1990s, China entered the post-Cold War transition, producing designs that hinted strongly at the future. The Type 92 introduced modular armor concepts that would define later export successes. Variants like the Type 85 IAP were built for international partners, proving China could tailor armored platforms to specific regional needs. One of the most dramatic glow-ups of all was the Type 59D, which modernized the ancient Type 59 with explosive reactive armor blocks. It was the ultimate example of China keeping legacy machines alive through advanced defensive upgrades. Then came the breakthrough tank of the late 1990s, the Type 96, a budget-friendly modern beast that balanced firepower, protection, and affordability. This tank became the backbone of China's armored forces in the modern era, offering mass deployment without breaking the maintenance system. Amphibious evolution also returned with the Type 63A, a radical redesign that mounted a much larger gun, turning an amphibious swimmer into a credible threat even against enemy warships near the coast. Finally, China revealed prototypes like the Type 98, signaling that the next generation of armored warfare had arrived. This machine introduced new armor concepts and powerful main guns, a clear warning that China was no longer merely copying, it was advancing. And then, in the 2000s, the true heavyweight champion emerged, the Type 99. Massive, heavily protected, packed with futuristic systems, the Type 99 became the king of China's armored divisions. It represented China's arrival among the world's top tank-producing nations, equipped with modern digital fire control, advanced armor, and devastating firepower.